Hey everyone, Clint here on a Sunday afternoon in late April. Hope everyone's doing well. After a slight break in the end of what we're calling Chapter 1, or Season 1, that is, of Ivy League Trucker, this is a transitional kind of formative episode as we go towards Season 2. So we're going to take Ivy League Trucker in a slightly different direction. The direction we were going was a little bit down the path of how do you get to empathy and understanding other people? And while I think that's a rich area, come to find out in discussing with other people, maybe I'm not the most unique person in that area. I mean, there's a lot of other cognitive scientists and psychiatrists, psychologists, and folks who have a lot to say about that. And I was really pushed by a friend to kind of bring Ivy League Trucker back to the core of what is really unique about it. And what's unique about it is me and my experience as the Ivy League trucker, as someone who, had an Ivy League education background, graduate school, world-class corporate, military, small company. And then, after losing everything through business failure, ended up in this place where I went towards trucking and am now in a blue collar world, a trucker world, and have a unique perspective on it, both as to how I got there, but also, I'm probably the world's most overeducated trucker and have a very atypical background. So I think bringing various aspects of trucking and the people involved in it and that world to everyone else who's not involved in it, which is most people, could be a rich and unique area. So here's what we'd like to do is each week I'll be covering a different aspect of trucking that is interesting, and some will be interviews with folks involved, others just my thoughts. But that's the direction we're going to be taking it. So hopefully you'll find that valuable. I know that's a bit of a switch, but that's why we're calling this Season 2. So what are we going to be looking into? So upcoming and following episodes will be one about self-driving trucks and AI in trucking. I'm sure you've thought, gee, self-driving cars, Waymos, et cetera, are coming, self-driving Teslas, et cetera. And are they doing that in trucking? And the answer is yes, it is happening. It's already starting to happen. It's pretty fascinating. And what is it? Why is it? But also, how is it affecting drivers and the entire industry? And what does it mean for everybody else? We'll also be looking at a lot more human interest, immigrants and trucking drivers, women and minorities, and some of the minority groups I really come to recognize out here on the road. A little bit about everything from cross-border to Mexico and Canada, and liability and crashes, risk and safety, all the way to the history of trucking. So those topics are some of the things we're going to be exploring here in Season 2. Hope you'll be along for the ride. So, in the theme of focusing on the drivers, here's an interview with Guy, a driver with 39 years of experience. I met him at a tank wash in Pittsburgh area, and we hit it off. I asked him if he'd want to be on the podcast, and he said, gee, nobody ever asked me anything like that before. So here it is. Hey, everybody, it's Clint, the Ivy League trucker. Hey, I'm actually out at a tank wash in Western Pennsylvania today that I stop at a lot to get tanks washed and flop out trailers. And I met a great guy, and we just started talking about trucking. And I asked him if he wanted to be on the podcast. So, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Hey, just tell us a little bit about how you got started, how you started in trucking.
It started back in 81.
And this was in Texas, right?
No, it'd be over in the
In
Carolinas.
Carolinas. Okay.
Growing up, been around it all my life. I landed got in a little bit of hot water,
Okay.
and I was told I basically needed to support my own habit because I started smoking at that age. And I went to work for a guy that had a shop,
Okay.
and I was just washing trucks or fueling them and learning this part, learning that. And that was my first break into the industry.
Okay.
And then, later on, it was time to start driving. So 39 years later, here I am.
Wow. Wow, wow. Yeah, we're about the same age, but you up until 5 years ago, our lives were quite different. So, you said that you, at one point, owned a couple trucks or running
Yes.
your own stuff. So what was that like? What was the good and bad of that?
The good part was, you learn how to do the contracts. You learn how to do certain things, to
Uh-huh.
get it up and going.
Right, right.
The downside about it is it's a lot of stress because,
Yeah, how so? What's the stress come from?
well, you gotta make sure everything stays up and up.
Right,
You got obviously somebody else working for you, so now
right,
you're basically supporting them,
right, right.
keeping them working so they can support their families. And it can get pretty stressful like it did toward the end there when
Okay.
fuel prices went outrageous the very first time back in the early 2000s. Put a lot of us out of business.
So, a lot of folks, I think if they look at the trucking industry, they just say, "Hey, if fuel prices go up," they just pass all that on to the customer, but it's not that simple, right?
Well, no, it's not because what happens is, like back before when I pulled reefers, everybody's like, well, they're charging so much for it. Well, I'm a consumer too.
Right,
My family's a consumer.
right,
So we're still paying for it regardless,
right,
however way you want to look at it. And it's still just like today with what we do.
right.
We haul do the same thing you do. We haul chemicals that goes into processing.
Mhm.
And it might process whatever we might need for that, throughout our lives,
Right,
our day-to-day lives.
right.
And so as a consumer, I'm still paying that cost.
Sure. Yeah,
So you don't really benefit other than keeping the truck rolling
right,
because you got to have some kind of capital to keep your business going.
right.
If not, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't
You can't,
daily expenses.
yeah, you can't take it on a hope and a prayer that, I'm gonna make a little bit of money. That's what a lot of, people see that and they think, well, they're making all this money. Well, no, they're not. There's a big overhead when it comes to the industry. And it's rough. You know, yeah, there's money to be made, but there's also a lot of money that goes out that behind the scenes nobody sees that.
Right.
They don't see maintenance and fuel and driver's wages and taxes and breakdowns and what have you. I mean, it's just everybody's got their hands up.
Yeah, and in this business, it's a very cyclical business. Like
Yeah.
each lane, what we call lanes in trucking, like Guy and I are in the liquid bulk petrochemicals, chemical kind of business. That's got a certain group of customers and a certain type of hauling. And then there's like reefer, which is refrigerated, and there's cattle hauling, and there's dry van and all that. But every one of them is got kind of a cyclical rates. If there's a lot of
Mhm.
demand, the economy snaps back like it did after COVID. I mean, everybody's making money because rates go up, but they go down too. And if you're not running your business really tight or have reserves, when you're making like basically not making hardly anything, hauling, just keeping everybody rolling, you go out of business. A lot of people go out
Very
of
quick.
business very quickly in this business.
We were talking earlier about tires. I got a couple tires I need to replace. People don't realize, they go buy tires for their car.
Right.
Well, $90 tire, 100 something dollar tire.
Right.
Man, I would love that. A drive tire for a truck can average anywhere upwards to 600, 700,
Yeah.
depending upon if you go to the shop. Now it's going to be higher if you're on the side of the road.
Right. Because you're paying for the service to get it to you.
Now you got to pay extra fee to come out and fix it. So all that comes into play when with the rates and like right now with the fuel being so outrageous.
Yeah. It went up. Fuel went up like 25% in like 2 weeks
Yeah.
because of the
So
war.
that all accumulates into whether or not your business is going to
Yeah.
sustain
Hmm.
the time frame.
So you had a couple trucks, you ran that. That was stressful. What happened after that?
I went back as a company driver for a couple of outfits, and
How was that?
it was good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like anything else. You have your good days, your bad days. You tend to try to overcome some of the obstacles at times.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to dwell on the bad, because all that's going to do is just going to bring
Yeah.
you
You have to,
bad.
I mean, trucking is even when you're if you're a driver, you're mostly alone. I mean,
Yes.
time wise. And from a like a mental health standpoint, you have to have you got to be pretty tough,
Yeah.
because you don't have like you can't just cry on somebody's shoulder. You're out there, good day, bad day. You're going to work 14 to 16 hours that day,
Mhm.
and you have to keep it going. And you're by yourself.
Yes. Even though you have a support team, whether it be your wife, your kids, somebody in the office, and other drivers, still
Hmm.
you got basically a support team.
Yeah,
But overall, you're by yourself.
yeah, yeah. And so, and it's a certain type of person that, thrives or does well in that environment. Like, for example, my brother-in-law, he's super capable, very successful businessman, but he thrives with people around him.
Mhm.
And he's a classic extrovert. He draws people energy from the people. And he would probably shoot himself in the head after about 3 months. I mean, he's just because of the type of work. So it's just and I know a lot of truck drivers who are like, do not stick me in an office with a bunch of people staring at computers.
Right, right. I mean, that would drive me up a wall if I had to sit in a cubicle 8 hours a day,
Mhm.
8, 9 hours a day to I mean, I have dipped in the office a little bit, just kinda helping out around the office, and I didn't mind that, but at any given time, I could get up, walk out the door, and
Yeah.
"You're on your own, dude,"
Yeah.
you know?
So you became a company driver, and then you were telling me earlier you worked for this smallish Texas-based company, and you were describing how it's just a really the arrangement is good for you.
They're actually based out of Dolomite, Alabama,
Oh, they're in Alabama. Okay.
the Birmingham area,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
and, they're excellent people, very humble people,
Okay.
very, very humble people.
So
Knowing some of their background and where they're at,
yeah.
they are very, very humble people.
So tell me how that plays out for you day on day in, day out. You were talking about that a little earlier, like that they trust you.
Yeah.
You were telling me earlier that what I took away from it was, you're very experienced as a driver, but not only that, like they trust you to do what you need to do and go the extra mile, lean in,
Right.
and then you trust them too. So it's this relationship that works.
Yeah, they're basically it's a family-owned business,
Uh-huh. Yeah, just like the
and
one I work for. Yeah.
they treat you as part of the family.
Okay.
They don't nowhere they don't just don't leave you hanging out to dry.
Mhm.
You know, if there's something comes up, they're right there. I have found over the years, I work for small companies, middle medium-sized companies, and bigger companies.
Uh-huh.
The smaller outfit is used smaller to medium is where, you get your best support.
So I really enjoyed talking to Guy. We're both about the same age, about 61, 62, except he spent the last 39 years driving in many different roles. And I've done a lot of different things and only been driving for 5 years. But we did hit it off. And I think the themes that come through with him are trucking's hard. And there are a lot of variables, economic variables, especially that you can't control price of fuel, parts, breaking down, maintenance. And then once you start a small company, you've got other drivers that you're managing. You're concerned for their welfare, but also they can be difficult to manage and they are really driving your business. So it was interesting, like many drivers who've driven many years, Guy was someone who had come back around to being an employee driver. And he was an owner operator. He owns his truck, but he's leased on, meaning operating under the authority of a larger carrier, a 40 or 50 truck company. And it's a good relationship that he described. And that works pretty well because they watch his back and take care of a lot of the scheduling and customer activities, et cetera. And they take that risk on their side and they keep him employed. And it's a good relationship. So I'm happy for him and I wish him the best. But I think he gives you some insight into what it's really like to be in this business. So until next time, it's Clint, the Ivy League trucker. 90 side up.